Yeah. Yeah. Oh my. I had a prayer list. Yeah. 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 We'll remember at our closing prayer tonight. Her particularly. She did they get right on it, Bob? Do you know? Yeah, because if they get there pretty quick with that shot, it stops that glutamate cascade. Bobby Klaudinsky, he didn't get help till the next day, and it was already too late for that. Remembering he never will recover from that. Yeah, Doyle, do you have a Georgia? Sorry. Did y'all see that ambulance leave a little while ago? Do you know who was on it? Huh? Uh, well, yeah, it was going. Yeah, yeah. Judy Ann and I, it it passed us a while ago. All lights are running and going right here out of town, and I'm running. Yeah, I just I just I didn't know who it might be. Uh, and okay, yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Well, I didn't know if it left here, so you cleared that up. I didn't know if it's somebody from here going or not. So uh, it always worries me when I see that ambulance running out because, well, there's so many of us that for example, Dot, and I just worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go ahead and look at it. Well, we don't have our crowd here much tonight, so it's not going to bother anything. Uh, you want to quit thinking about things, Bob, because it make your head hurt. Yeah. Oh no. Hey, that may be a guy. That may be kind of a slam on us. Yeah. Okay. Give us the passage, please. Yeah. That's exactly right, Bob. When you analyze the text, that's all it can be, because he's saying that this uh, the child is God receives the child, and God will not receive sin or the sinner without the blood of Christ. So yeah. And so the child in is uh, let's say it like this: a child is in no need of redemption because the child is not lost. That's what he's saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The child is not lost, and so the child has no need of redemption. And he's saying, unless you put on the cloak of innocence like a child has, you know, in other words, this one-upmanship they're trying to pull here, it's beguiling. When it's devious. It's what's some other words? Carol, help us out. It's beguiling. It's devious. It's uh, plain old Texas word. It's sneaky. Uh, yeah, political, and it has the devil's own workings with it. But a child, they function in absolute innocence. Yeah, 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 yeah. With sin. Yeah, yeah, and that's also why the denominational world. Now, let me say this to clarify something. Uh, they baptize babies like in the Methodist Church, the Catholic Church, and the some of the harder line denominational world that don't want to be associated with the Catholic Church. For example, the Baptist people, and for example, the Christian Church. Uh, we all make people angry at us, but I had a couple come, and they were members of the church here, or they called themselves members, and they wanted me to christen their baby the next Sunday. Now, that's the same thing. That means that when you christen the baby, that is the softer stance on born in sin, and so you don't baptize the baby. You don't use the Roman Catholic uh, phraseology, but when you christen the baby, it's one and the same. And I told them, I said, no, I said, I don't do that. The Bible doesn't teach that. And we began to talk like that. Well, they were upset because they wouldn't do it, and they were going to go somewhere where they would do it. And at that time, the Baptist preacher, and I can't remember his name, uh, oh, the basketball coach guy. At any rate, I saw him at the next Lions Club meeting, and he said, "Did somebody talk to you?" Blah blah blah. I said yes, and he said, "Don't they attend where you preach?" And I said, "Well, Easter, Christmas, and a blue moon." And he said, "Well," said they called me about christening their baby, and he said I wasn't going to do that. And I said, "Well, I didn't either." And he said, "Yeah, I know. That's why they told me." And they were pretty upset with you because you were supposed to be their minister and you wouldn't do it. I said, "Look, I don't go with that born in sin stuff." And I said, "I know you have to embrace that, but I said, we don't." So the Christian church, the first Christian church, uh, and as far as I know, the disciples of Christ do not, but I know the Christian church does. And, the first person I ever baptized myself, the very first person I ever baptized was the first Christian church preacher at Gould, Oklahoma. I was preaching in Gould, Oklahoma. Denise put on the Facebook, I'd been preaching 45 years starting this month. I said, "Denise," I said, "I had to preach to eat when I went through school. We didn't have that support thing then that they have now." And I said, "We had the GI Bill and we had to preach to eat." I said, "I preached at Gould, Oklahoma." And, but anyway, we'd go to lunch together at the little Dairy Queen, Slow Queen. at the Slow Queen there in town, and we'd go to lunch together there at Hollis every Sunday afternoon, and we would talk and talk and talk, and I baptized him into Christ. And the next session at sunset started, he graduated a year behind me because he left there. And of course, when I had baptized him, well, they fired him. So anyway, that was the first baptism that I ever was a part of, was baptizing that first Christian church preacher. And the second baptism was in Idaho with migrant worker Roman Catholics, and that family came to our gospel meeting, and that's when I learned the lesson. And after services, she came. She's about 20 or 21. She said, "I want to obey the gospel as you say, but I don't know what to do." And I thought to myself, Michael, that's fundamental. So after that, I've always included what to do in order to be saved. But I want you to look at something, Bob. I want you to look in Deuteronomy chapter 1, and let's look at verse 39, okay? Verse 39. And then, I didn't bring my little reference. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 39. 1, Deuteronomy. It means to redo, to say it again. All right, in verse 29 or 39, moreover, your little ones that you said should be a prey, they're saying you brought us out here to die, and our children's going to be a prey, and your children that this day have no knowledge of good or evil. See that? See that right there? They have what? No knowledge of good or evil. They shall go in thither, and unto them will I give it, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn you. Here's where you turn them around, and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. So that just comes out and says that the kids do not know good or evil. All right? Now, let me think. Before we go to Isaiah 7, I wrote this down for Georgia, and I'm trying to remember. And I'll find it. Just a second. Stay with me, and I'll find where. I think it's in 12, 2 Samuel 12, I think. But I'll look. It is 2 Samuel 12. I couldn't remember for a moment. Now, look at this. David has sinned with Bathsheba. Bathsheba became pregnant, remember? All right, he tried to get Uriah to go down to the house and lay with his wife, and he wouldn't do it. Now, and then he had him killed. But I want you to see this. And let's just start verse 21, 2 Samuel 12. Then said his servants unto him, what thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive. But when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. And he said, while the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who knoweth whether Jehovah will not be gracious to me that the child might live? Everybody loves a baby. Isn't that right? I mean, babies God made them in a package where you just love them. And these sick people today that are killing babies, and these mothers that had these babies and throw them in trash cans. Now look at this, verse 23. But now he is dead, so it was a little boy. Now he is dead, wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? And notice the next statement. What's it say? I will go to him, but he will not return to me. Where do you think David thinks that the child is? That's right. That's exactly right. That baby was born, would you say, in sin or because of sin, wouldn't you? Now, there's a classic case of a baby born out of wedlock, all right? That is called adultery, all right? It is immoral. It is scripturally illegal. It is ugly in the sight of God. A little illegitimate child, you see, it's not the baby's fault. The baby is not tainted. So if you ever had an argument for a tainted baby, this would be it right here. But he said, I'm going where that baby is, because he understood that baby was with God. So don't let these people tell you that babies are born in sin. This baby was born because of sin. It surely was. Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. David took advantage of his position as king, brought her into his house, and caused her to become pregnant, and then murdered her husband. That is about as rotten apple as you'll find in a barrel of humanity, and yet God took that baby home. Why? Like Bob brought to our attention, because unless you become as that child, you'll never see heaven. So the child is used as an illustration of innocence. Of innocence. All right, now let's look at one other passage, because I don't mind at all helping you with this. No, I said one other. I told you a big story. Let's back up to Job. I'm going to show you some of the things that Job had to deal with, and it starts at about 14. Let me see if I can find it. But what Job is listening to, now here, listen to this. Job 15, verse 14. What is man that he should be clean, and he that is born of woman that he should be righteous? Now, then you ask yourself, who said that? Now, back up to chapter 15, verse 1, and who said that? Eliphaz. All right? That's like Satan saying in Genesis 3, if you eat of the tree, you will not die. This is human philosophy, all right? That's not biblical truth, but it's recorded as exactly what Eliphaz has said, okay? And Job said in chapter 16, verse 1 and 2, then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. Shall vain words have an end? You know? So Eliphaz is classified as vain words. All right? As vain words. And there's a boy, I wish I'd have brought my references, because I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But you see, that is classified as vain words. There's nothing in it. And then one of the other men opened his mouth. Here it is, chapter 26. All right. Now this is the shortest man in the Bible. Okay. It's Bildad the Shuhite. That's pretty short, isn't it? All right. Now, it's just what he said. All right? Now, look at the doctrine of the day. Verse 4. How can man be just with God? Or how can he be clean that is born of a woman? See? There's that insidious poison. In verse 6. How much less man that is a worm, and the son of man that is a worm? All right. So you and I both know we're not worms. All right? And so the same way we know we're not worms, we know we're, that which is born of a woman. Notice it's not true either. Now, look what Job said. He answered and said, How hast thou helped him that is without power? How hast thou saved the arm that has no strength? How hast thou counseled him that has no wisdom, and plentiful declared sound knowledge? To whom hast thou uttered words? And whose spirit come forth from thee? You see, this is not the Spirit of God. This is not inspiration. And Job challenges it. And so Bildad is just like Eliphaz. He is mouthing the philosophy held by the many. All right? Held by the many. It's just like you hear today, the philosophy, need to get rid of the electoral college because we're a democracy, and the answer to that is baloney. We're not a democracy. We're easing into a democracy, or not easing, we're going full speed. But our forefathers that set forth this nation on this continent, they set us up as a republic because a democracy is mob rule. A democracy is ruled by majority vote. And a democracy, like all democracies before ours, has destroyed itself by majority vote. A republic is quite a different thing. All right, so what you have here is the same type thing that I'm illustrating. You have a common philosophy, and it's wrong. People, especially the younger people today that have no real study of American history, they believe this is a democracy, and it should be, and they're wrong. Now, to whom hast thou uttered words, and whose spirit came forth from thee? So these are words coming from a spirit other than God. Other than God. It's the same thing that Eliphaz said, and it's just as wrong. And that's what Job said. Miserable comforters are y'all. He said, can you give anybody strength with these words of yours? Can you strengthen the failing arms? Can you help the pitiful with this type of doctrine? No, you can't. It doesn't help anybody. And that's what he's saying. Now let's go to, I said we'd go to Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 7. And here's one I didn't put on that list. George, I didn't get it on there. Okay, it's Isaiah 7. Now this is the king of no faith. If you had a pinnacle you could stack everybody up on, the top of the pyramid would be Ahaz. If you were saying, here's the pinnacle of no faith, this is Ahaz right here. What he's done is built a confederacy with two other kings, and he's hoping that confederacy saves his kingdom, and it's not. Because God says, your nation is going to become a smoking, heap of ruins, and they're going to become firebrands that are burned up. That's what he says. And he said in verse 17, Jehovah will bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come from the day Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. So the 10 tribes, the northern tribes, were lost because of the ungodliness, and God brought the king of Assyria, and he carried off the 10 tribes, and they destroyed them all, and so there's the 10 lost tribes. Well, they're not lost. God knows where they are. They're in hell. They're all right there, and he can count every one of them. So they're in hell. But notice what he said in verse 10. He said, I'm gonna give you a sign. And Jehovah spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of Jehovah thy God. So God says, ask me. You don't believe this? Ask me for a sign. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. It doesn't matter. In the sea or on the earth, wherever it is. But Ahaz said, oh, no, you know me. I wouldn't dare do something like that. And then he said, Hear now, O house of David, God speaking to Isaiah, is it a small thing for you to weary men that you should weary my God also? So Isaiah says, you're really wearing out God. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Now, who's he going to give the sign to? Who's he talking about? Ahaz. So he's going to give Ahaz a sign. All right? Now here's the sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. You know, the first time that Jesus was named in the Bible, that wasn't the first time that name is found in Hebrew. Not the first time at all. It was a common name. It was a common name. All right? Now, butter and honey shall he eat. This little baby and that's why it says in the margin, this young maiden shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, when he knoweth to refuse the evil and choose the good. So, when he comes, see, butter and honey shall he eat, when, he knoweth to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse evil and choose the good, the land in whose two kings thou abhorrest shall be forsaken. And it's God that abhors the two kings. Okay? Now, the point is that this child doesn't know the difference between good and evil. All right? It doesn't know. So curds and honey shall he eat. And so it's baby food. Baby food. And on our dairy in Idaho, milk truck came every 2 days, picked up 1,500 and something gallons of milk normally, and took it down to, we had a contract with Kraft, and took it down to Cary, Idaho to Kraft. And sometimes we'd call them, and I would say, would you backhaul the curds? You know what curds are? After they make the cheese, then I would ask the plant and the driver, would they backhaul the curds? Because I was feeding hogs. I had 2 hogs at that time in the pen. And so the driver would backhaul the curds from the cheese factory. And he'd come by the dairy and he would offload those curds. And they'd be in great big old plastic bags, heavy duty plastic bags. And the curds were real, they had cooked that milk and make that cheese. And the curds were real little, they weren't particularly balls, but they were just, round looking things. And they were real mushy. You could just mash them and they'd just dissolve in your hand almost. All right. And they were good to eat because they were the leftovers from processing the curds. And I know Mike and Denise would get in there. I'd be throwing them out to the hogs, and they'd get double handfuls of them things. And they were good to eat because they were the leavings after they cooked the milk, made the cheese. Now, the point is, curds are baby food. All right? Curds are baby food. And so this child, did you notice? Yeah. When he gets to the age that he knows to refuse evil and choose good. See, there's no evil in this child until he gets to a certain age to where he knows the difference between right and wrong. That's the point. This child is going to be born. So in the king's house somewhere, there's a young lady that has a baby. Okay? She has a baby. And no, it's not like Mary's baby. But she has a baby. And this is going to be a sign to Ahaz. And he's going to say, uh-oh. I don't know if it's granddaughter or servant girl or family member, but all of a sudden one of these little girls comes up pregnant, and he's going to say, uh-oh. Because God said, I'm going to give you a sign in your own house. And you're going to know that what I've told you is true. So the baby, the child, has to get a certain age before evil is attached to the child. That's the point. One other passage. Let's look at 1 Corinthians. If I wear y'all out with this, stop me. I don't mean to. I'm one other passage, and we're going to let the kids have it. 1 Corinthians, and here we go. The Apostle Paul, chapter 13. Remember this passage? And he says, he said, but when that which is perfect is come, that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I felt as a child, I thought as a child. Now that I become a man, I put away childish things. And so there's a difference in behavior. There's a difference in knowledge. There's a different level of different things. And that's why one of the things that we ought to be careful about baptizing, we talk about not baptizing babies, but some of these younger children we need to be careful about, because a child is a child, and they have to be old enough to know the difference between childish things and other things. They really do. We generally set an age in our world today somewhere around 12, 13, something like that. It may be a little earlier today. I don't know. It depends, I think, on the individual child. It does. So tonight, Nathan's going to lead our singing, and then we have Doyle's going to bring our Devo.